Okay, everybody, welcome back to another edition of Nobody Likes Recruiters. This is a podcast for you if you're looking to ace your recruitment game, if you're in the business of looking for the most outstanding candidates that can make your business better. It's a podcast put out by Logic Resourcing. Lee and Steve here have been in the game for a long, long time. They know everything about this and they run an agency that you kind of say that you do things a little bit differently, but that is, just before we go on to the topic of today's show, that is something that all recruitment agencies say, isn't it? We do things differently, but you guys generally do things differently, don't you?
They say they genuinely do things differently.
Yeah. Okay, you guys genuinely do. Because you do, don't you?
Well, we don't know how a recruitment agency operates, do we? Aside from Logic Resourcing, our background was all internal. Never worked a day in a recruitment agency. Aside from dealing with agencies, we've kind of pieced together this and made our processes all aligned to what we used to know from internal recruitment. So, from that perspective.
Yeah.
Well, there aren't too many recruitment agencies out there with a podcast, so if you enjoy this episode, make sure to like, share, subscribe, do all those good things, leave us a review, and if you are looking for help with your recruitment as well, the boys are the people to go to. In this episode, we're going to be talking about why it's not advantageous to use multiple recruitment agencies at once, because I get it, it's very tempting, there's lots of them out there, and whenever you say you need a position filling, I imagine they're on you. How does that, just quickly before we go into that though, how does that work? How do agencies find out that you're looking for a role if you don't go to them directly? Or is it if a company just puts something, say, on Indeed, then all of a sudden they get recruitment agencies speaking to them? How's that work?
I don't know what you're on about there.
You don't know that question?
No, I have no idea.
That question was pretty clear.
I was a bit lost, but I think he says...
How do they find out that you've got a role if you don't tell them?
What, a recruitment? Another agency?
If you're a business owner...
Yeah.
No.
Okay.
So I'm a business. I make...
doesn't matter what you do.
Yeah.
Just
think about it.
Okay, fine. I make Rustler's burgers. That's
Right.
back to the last episode. I make burgers, right? And I want someone to come and serve the burgers for me.
Right.
How do you find out that I've got that role available if I don't tell you? Do you know what I mean? How do you as a recruitment agency come to me and say, we'll help you with this role?
A lot of businesses, it depends. You can do your outbound, like you said. You could look at what adverts people are posting out there and then kind of hit them up and say we can get you somebody. But half the time, they come to you. And ask
cool. Well, the people listening to this will probably know that. The people who listen to this will probably know that, and they probably don't sell Rustlers. None of us work for Rustlers, by the way. They don't sponsor this podcast. Right, so multiple agencies out there. Somebody who's looking for a candidate thinks, I'm just going to get this company to do it for me, this company to do it, and then we'll see what they come back with. Why, Lee, is that not the right thing to do? Because it seems intuitively like a sensible thing to do.
Yeah, and that's what I would say. First of all, it seems, I want my role filled as soon as possible. The best way to give me exposure to all these candidates that are out there, supposedly on the market, would be to go out to 3 or 4 different agencies, because all agencies have different pools of candidates, so they'll tell you. And, the best way to fill a vacancy as quick as possible is to go out to loads of different agencies, when actually that really isn't the case.
Do you think it's a bit of a mentality thing, though? They think they're creating competition or creating, some sense of something to make everyone want to rush to it. And actually, what other industry do you tend to do it? You don't engage multiple builders to do the same role or anything like that.
If I wanted a pen, I wouldn't go out to 2 companies. Whoever can get me the pen made first, I'll pay.
Yeah, but I think that's the kind of the notion is.
I know.
That's not the greatest analogy.
But I think the notion is
analogy.
for a business is they just want to feel like loads of people are rushing around and
I think there's nothing wrong with wanting urgency from your agency, and I don't mean rushing the recruitment process. I mean
prioritising your needs.
Prioritising your needs. Now, the best way to prioritise your needs is to give a role give an agency exclusivity, because then they know. From our point of view, if I was given a role exclusivity, I would prioritise that vacancy. I feel almost a duty of care to that company. They've entrusted me to fill the role. I've got to deliver. Similarly to when I was working in-house and we were given a role exclusively, we had to fill that role.
Because I think that's the biggest thing, is that sometimes when you try and explain to businesses, I've got it with 4 other agencies. Let's be dead honest, and this was explained to us when we were internal, wasn't it? By agencies that we work with. I'm not massively motivated to fill your role, because I've got 10 other businesses I'm working with that we're recruitment partners with. They trust us to do their recruitment. We work with them exclusively. And I've got your role that I'm working with 5 other agencies. That it's going to be the fastest finger first, fastest one to get a CV in your inbox wins.
And tell me,
motivating.
I get that, and I'm sure the audience does as well. Tell me about some of those problems that you encounter when you're recruiting for a role where you know there's other people recruiting for the same role. Like, how does that manifest in terms of bumping up against them? You know,
before we go into that, we all fish.
Have I jumped ahead?
No, but I mean, it's just one thing I wanted to just notice.
Okay.
Regardless of what agencies tell you, we all fish in the same pool there or thereabouts. Yes, some agencies might have a specific database, but in today's market, it's moving so fast that databases are largely irrelevant, aren't they? You know, candidates are the candidates aren't waiting around on a database, good candidates. So we are all fishing in the same pool.
Yeah, and I think you're hitting up. But I think...
so those problems then that you might encounter...
Yeah, I think the biggest kind of problems that you encounter is it becomes a hassle for the organisation, really, because it's happened many times, isn't it, that we're talking to a candidate, an agency gets wind that we're talking to the candidate but have not submitted him yet because we may have booked them in for an interview the following day, and that CV just gets pinged straight into that inbox of the client. Now, technically, the person who gets the CV in the inbox first owns the rights to that candidate. And then it can become really messy where your agencies are ending up asking the person, who do you want to represent you, or all the other kind of bits, and it gets the company involved, and it can get really kind of messy in the end, can't it? I think
it becomes a race, doesn't it?
Yeah.
That's what it creates. It creates a race. And it happens multiple times with us. And, you know, if we find out, 2 or 3 other agencies are working on a position. First of all, now we don't generally accept that sort of work because, you know, it just leads to bad practices. But it just creates people firing CVs forward without any form of qualification, hoping that one lands in the inbox and they get paid because of it.
Well, the experience of the candidates is pretty poor as well. I think, like, you know, they just are seen as a number, a commodity. They just want to be fired forward. It's funny, isn't it? Sometimes, you know, we get thanked, you know, by candidates for taking time to understand what it is that they want and to match the role with the needs and all the other kind of stuff. And that should just be a standard practice. You know, I'm
laughing because I've been through this actually relatively recently where a recruiter came to me, something Web3 orientated, and we're like, oh, this is, you know, this opportunity. Oh, that's interesting. Okay, I'll have a conversation with them. And like the next day, I got a different recruiter talking to me about the same position. I was like, wait, I've already had a conversation with them. What's this about? Is this the setup? Was there something go wrong? Did that not get passed on? I don't know. It worked out it was a different company. And then also there was differences with what they were saying, which is strange. So you I suppose if you only got one person or one company working on that, like you guys have got your script, and you're not going to deviate from that. But if they've got multiple people, then things can get even just innocently lost in the instructions, and then they're saying different things to candidates. It sounds like, although again, it seems like, well, of course you've got more people searching, but actually it creates more issues than it's.
And I think without. And depending, there isn't always parity. You know, depending on the fee becomes then a really big thing. You know, people price for risk, don't they? You know, you might end up paying a higher fee because you've got it out with multiple agencies than sometimes negotiating a better fee when you're all in an exclusive with another company. You know, it's so there's lots of kind of pitfalls to doing it, really. I think it goes back to what we're probably saying about doing recruitment well and right. It generally doesn't happen when it's a race to the bottom and the fastest CV into the inbox first.
No.
And I think there's a bit of a parity as well about companies that brief 3 or 4 different agencies on a role, probably don't spend the time with each individual agency, probably not going to invite every single agency in to go and spend half a morning with them and talk them through the job, which is why you're getting calls from multiple agencies where all the role information given to you is slightly different on each chat. You'd be better picking, you know, 1, possibly 2 if you really dead against just picking one and dedicating a bit more time to making sure they fully understand the role, the remit, what you're looking for. So dedicate more time to one, don't spread it over 3 or 4, because that won't be your best outcome.
Yeah, of course. And also, I suppose it comes down to then choosing the right one. The right one. So you guys take your logic hat off for a second, but what types of things should a business be looking for in a recruitment agency to ensure that they find the right people?
You're right. It's hard, I think, because quite a lot of recruitment agencies are very sales led, and they can all talk a really good game about what they can do, what they can deliver, and all the other kind of bits and pieces.
Yeah.
But I think quite a lot is about your gut instinct about how somebody's going to treat you as a client. I think once you talk to your consultant, you understand who they are, what they do, what's their background, what's their experience. Because I think sometimes experience is quite important. If you're going to be looking for a welder or a CNC machinist, do you understand anything first and foremost about what it is that they do? Actually, when you go and talk to somebody about a sales role, do they understand the difference between sales, account management, business development, hunting, all the other kind of bits and pieces so you get a bit of a gauge, from that conversation. But then the other bit I probably think is the bit element around, do your due diligence really. I suppose now, like TripAdvisor, you've got a set of Google reviews, you've got a website that you can land on, see what they're all about, as an agency, a good agencies have testimonials, I suppose, on there and stuff.
And then once you've picked your agency, and again, like we said earlier, the reason why some companies use multiple agencies is because they say, well, I want to keep the agency on their toes. I do want to add that little bit of competition, which is not the right thing. But do keep the agency on your toes by checking out the quality of the advert that they've put out first of all. Have a quick look on Google where it is. Once they're there, ask for see if they offer a catch-up or a review after the first week. Test that communication between them, because a good agency, right from the off, after 3 or 4 days, will give you an update on where they are with candidates. They'll give you some feedback on the candidates they've approached. They might have sent you a selection of kind of profiles to have a look through to see. So there's nothing wrong with keeping the agency on the toes.
No.
But it's a kind of it should be a two-way process from briefing a role.
I think when you're working exclusively, I feel loads of pressure.
Yeah.
I feel more pressure working exclusively than I do on a non-exclusive. And like Lee says, we don't do a lot of it, but 100% don't. I might feel it, but I might not. But I'm not as concerned because they've got another agency working, so they might feel it. Whereas when you're exclusive, the feeling of going to let down that organisation because I can't deliver them on what they need is a driver to do more searching, do more calls, do more whatever it is, because ultimately, you've got to have that pride in what you do, haven't you?
Shameless plug, but we are about over 90% fill rate on exclusive assignments. And if we compare that to assignments where we're not exclusive, it is a lot less for our fill rate, and the vacancy time to fill is a lot longer as well. So it's almost like, do I get five agencies working a role where they'll all only be about 25% asked, or do I get one vacancy that's going to be, I'll give it 100% attention? I know which one I prefer.
And almost act like an arm of your business,
because
that's what you want to do. You want to train them to almost be an internal recruitment arm of your business. And it's harder to do that if you've got 3 or 4.
And it's a really good point, I'd make, is sometimes if your agency's doing a good job, I can often have it where a candidate doesn't distinguish whether you, so they go to, so are you actually the company or the agent? Because actually, if you've done your due diligence and your research, you understand the business, how they operate, the culture, you end up talking as if you are that business. And then the candidate goes, so he refers to your company and your da-da-da because he thinks that you're part of that company.
Wow. So that there is the ultimate seal of approval, I think. So just to conclude then, less is more in this context. As long as it's the right less. So go with an agency that's strong, that's going to get you, that's going to pick around like you guys do. Again, this isn't a shameless plug, but it doesn't matter who the agency is as long as they do those things. And just one thing as well, this fishing in the same pool, because I think there's a perception that there are more people out there still, despite the news, there's more people looking for jobs than there are jobs, but we know that's not the case.
No.
And I think people are maybe stuck in a recession, post-recession, 2008 recession type mindset when
Yeah.
that was the case, I think. So you don't need to have 3 or 4 people. You just don't really need to have 3 or 4 different agencies working on this stuff then.
No.
So anything else you want to add? Because I think that's pretty concise, guys. I think you've given the listeners a strong overview there. So the key takeaway, I think, from this, just to summarise what the lads have said, is you don't need to go out and get multiple different agencies. If you are looking for an agency to do your recruitment for you, though, give Logic a shout. If nothing else, they'll offer you some more advice and follow on from the conversation that we've had here. As always, like, share, subscribe, do all that good stuff if you enjoyed the podcast. If you've got want to leave us a review, any insight, then please do. And we'll see you next time on Nobody Likes Recruiters. All the best. Not only can recruitment be a rather frustrating process, it can also be pretty time consuming. But thankfully, the team at Logic Resourcing can take all that pain away from you. Lots of agencies say that they do recruitment differently. We've all heard it. But as you know from this podcast, both Lee and Steve at Logic genuinely mean it. Now, put it this way, 94%, yes, that's right, 94% of the candidates that they submit attend their interviews, and Logic have a 90% success rate on exclusive assignments. That's pretty impressive. So if you're looking to ace your recruitment, make your life easier, and find those diamond candidates, start by letting Logic take the stress out of all of this for you. Give us a call or email info@logicresourcing.com.